Hey guys, in today's preseason video, we're talking Bombers versus St Kilda. One team that decided to show up and the other one that was left in the car park. Hope you enjoy. Sorry about that, Joe. I know North Melbourne scored a few more goals than your boys did today, but a bit of a scrappy one, wasn't it?
Mate, everyone scored more goals than the Bombers did today. It was a final score, St Kilda 16-10, 106, defeating the Bombers 5-10-40. It was a 66-point loss. And to be honest, that is very fair. The Saints came to play. The Saints wanted to win. They put their bodies on the line. They were diving for smothers. They really were playing as if it was a home and away game. Meanwhile, our boys at the Bombers came in for a training session and they were trained upon. So it wasn't great, but it is what it is. We managed a bit of a few of our players. Well done to the Saints for coming out and playing like men.
Yep.
I'm not, throwing the baby out with the bathwater on this one. It was just a pracky game. And even if we won, I wouldn't be screaming. I wouldn't be very happy with myself. It's just a pracky. Hopefully a lot of it gets addressed next week.
Yeah, fair enough. And it's sometimes, as we say, right, teams will take it as we're actually going in hard like Brisbane did, or it's, we're trying to play around with things. It's obviously first preseason game, especially sides that have had some injury worries in the past. They're like, let's just take it easy. We'll play some quarters with some players. Let's take out some of our stars halfway through. Bit of a muchness, really.
Yeah, exactly. I don't entirely know why a team wouldn't try to go and play in a similar style that they want to play for the season proper. I can understand why the Saints played the way they did. They brought some new personnel to help move the ball really quickly, and move the ball quickly they did. So it makes sense what we saw from the Saints, what we saw from the Bombers, a little bit confusing, especially in relation to how you want to play the game. Very slow, didn't seem like to be a lot of system. Obviously, the game was very wind affected as well. The Saints knew how to use it. The Bombers, I've said it in the past, we've been very low IQ in the past. Hope that we would sort of move away from that, but alas, we didn't play the conditions very well. And the Saints on their home deck, who trained there, they knew how to go about it and go about it well. They very well did. So absolutely kudos to them. They deserve the win. And hopefully next week when we play at Cardinia Park, which has not been a favorable hunting ground for us for a long time either. So look, I'm looking at two losses to start the season, going into 2024. Always very optimistic when you start that way.
Hey, it's not how you start the season, it's how you finish, right? Port Adelaide were like 0-5, and then they ended up making finals. And same with Collingwood, or not Collingwood, same with Carlton as well. So there's hope, Joe. There's hope for you yet.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and the way we ended the season last year was disastrous and sort of took away a lot of the optimism for this year. Only one way to go, and that's to keep looking ahead, and look ahead we shall. We will start with the Bombers. Yeah, we'll start with the Bombers in this video. Put me out of my misery without having to talk about them too much, and then we can move on to talk about the Saints afterwards. So here we are talking now about the Bombers. And we're starting off with Mason Redmond because he was the one who actually kicked our first goal of the day. Well done, Red Dog, with a long bomb outside 50.
There's a good video of it up on Twitter. I don't know if the club posted or someone else did, but congratulations to him. It's one of the things that I think Essendon needs to work on, is having everyone outside of the forwards kicking goals. So to have like a defender being able to do that, push up the ground, let's think like Jaden Short type role, or some of these other players who that's kind of what they do, and then they'll pump out. Daniel Rich always got the occasional goal as well. So being able to have another threat outside forward 50, and you're not having to just put the ball in the forward 50 to be able to actually score, it's a good thing.
Yeah, especially when our forward 50 was as ineffective as it was today. We had no 2-minute Peter to line up with, and then we had Stringer on for the first half, and then he was taken off after half time, but he was played a bit on the ball. So Our forward line wasn't great. As you say, we need to spread the love a little bit when it comes to hitting the scoreboard. Andy McGrath, our vice captain, he did well in defensive efforts, but once again, his ball use was very bad. Always he'll have to look away whenever he's about to kick the ball, and it's not good, not a good thing to do. So he is absolutely not Supercoach relevant whatsoever. And I anticipate that some people were concerned that we're gonna be using this guy to exit D50. I really hope not, because it really was shown today why he and this guy are not being utilized as distributors, and there's a reason.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they're not.
And there's a reason why there's a cheeky midfielder that we've been hyping on the entire season as to, hey, this guy looks good. This guy looks good. It's just sad that like Massimo left, and then you've still got McGrath and Heppel in the back line trying to play AFL, because I think he'd be better than both of them up on field at the moment. Andy McGrath's a weird one, Joe. Just kind of, I don't know if he was the wrong pick at pick 1, but never really felt like he's lived up to that expectation. Yeah, it's not a great, and obviously we know Dyson Heppel is that player who a couple more years potentially, and then he's off to retirement station. So yeah, it's a hard one, and I can see kind of where bringing in young players like Zach Reed and Ben Mackay, who's not so young but new to the team, trying to reinvigorate and work off your strengths versus your weaknesses is where the game plan's going.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, you know what? Let's just talk about him now. You sort of raised him. We don't want these guys distributing the ball off halfback. I think it's
No.
been a sore point for us, and I think it's been identified that, you know what, let's move this guy behind the ball. Let this guy be the distributor. Let him use his traits. And as you say, we've been raving about him all preseason, and I think everyone has seen why. He had the ball on a string. The ball, he placed himself in all the right positions in order to receive the ball. We were looking for him, and really outside of this guy, there was no one coming out of defense that really was able to hit any targets. So it was blistery. It was very bad, the conditions, but Nick Martin, 29 disposals, 20 of them were effective. He normally is better than that. I put a lot of blame on the conditions today, as well as the fact that our team was just comprehensively beaten. I'm not entirely sure we're going to be seeing that all too often. Maybe I'm just a biased supporter, but I don't think we're going to see such a discrepancy between efforts like we saw today in the season proper. I do think this guy really should be owned by a lot of people in the midfields, because he will be getting DPP. Just out of curiosity, what's his current ownership at? Sub 10%. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's great for us, because when he starts scoring hundreds and everyone else is trying to scramble to get him in, be like, sucked in, we told you, watch out for the
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not much to say. I just hope for you guys and hope for the fans that, you're pushing for finals. Brad Scott was brought in because he's played finals before. Something needs to change. Hopefully it does. Nick Martin off the halfback. It's what you need. Also, you do need that Zach Merritt in the midfield, Joe. And then Parrish as well. So if we have a look at the stats from today, Parrish 76% CBAs, and then in a sneaky one, Jonas is not going to be happy, but Goat, I'm going to say Goat played today, Joe, and he came in with 72% CBAs. So he's back, he's firing, and it wasn't shocking in the midfield, especially in a loss.
No, he was not. I do have a lot of I have a lot of love for the Goat. He does have his protractors, of course. Abs, the Supercoach Godfather, calls him Spud. But he was great. I do think the criticism that he copped last year was a little bit unwarranted, considering his injuries. When we started him last year and he was fit and healthy, he was definitely a very solid contributor for us, and as a defensive midfielder. So I do think he was definitely among our best. He was very much a positive. I did like his game today. Merritt only played for the first half before being managed. In the post-game interview with Jan Siracusa, who was the acting coach today, he said Zach Merritt was always planned to be taken off at halftime. He did roll his ankle just before halftime. However, he did do a lot of sprint activities at high pace after halftime as well. So it seems that it's not an issue. He was always going to be taken off at halftime. Darcy Parish, I do have him still in my team. He was a great accumulator. He looked really ominous early on when the game was on the line and things were really close. I thought he was very much involved, even in transition, was very methodical with the ball in hand. I know his disposal efficiency by foot obviously was not great, but again, the conditions were terrible. We were getting smashed. And there were quite a few times where I could see him have the ball in his hand and he's looking for someone to present and no one was presenting. And so he had to resort to try some kicks. So I still am not off this pick. I do think there is upside. There were 27 clearances for the each. So do think that we can and we should be tightening up defensively, creating more stoppages. When we had the stoppages, he was really good. He was getting first hands on it all the time. I'm still not off the pick just yet, but I am happy to be convinced otherwise if we see some more bad kicking from him in the next game against Geelong. I know how much work he's put in this offseason, and I have seen the improvement myself with his disposal efficiency. Even Zach Merritt really scuffed a couple of kicks in really poor fashion, which is very un-Zach Merritt-like. It was a weird day. It was the first hit out. Everyone was scrappy. I can forgive these guys for missing some kicks today.
Yeah, there's always that threat, though, of Parrish kind of... It's a bit of a meme in the Supercoach community, but him having to get 35-plus touches to get 100 Supercoach points, and we saw that a little bit today. I think someone did the AFL fantasy ratings for the game, and he did even score 100, and he had like 32 touches. So just something to watch out for. I remember there being a few other players in previous years, not Parrish, but some other ones that, maybe Tom Mitchell as well, being like, cool, I've got to get like 40 touches to get 100 points. And for the price in Supercoach, that's not what we want. So as Joe says, watch, but he's only, 5K to go up to a Brayshaw, so it's not the end of the world.
Correct, exactly. Elijah Sardis, he's in here as well, playing on a wing. Thought he was involved pretty well today, used his speed very well, mostly by hand, not by foot. And I think that was a regular, what we saw a lot today from the Essendon side, a lot of handballs, trying to move the ball with hand as opposed to by foot, trying to take into account the wind and the conditions. I thought we tried to play to those conditions. Obviously, we didn't handle them very well, but I thought Elijah did really well, to be honest. Definitely showed a lot. Fingers crossed that he can continue to develop. I know he's been working on his kicking as well in this off-season. Hopefully, we can see a bit more from him. And I think he should definitely feature in the game next week against the Cats. If he does well there again, then you never know. He could be playing in round one and could be a selection for us in the forward line.
A little bit on Elijah Sardis, Joe. Previous to this, you were like, don't pick him, he's no good, blah, blah, blah. Now it's just like, could be okay. Not too bad.
It could be okay. Yeah, because he was at stoppages. Yeah. It wasn't like he was pure outside. And he used his traits, his explosiveness, his hard running to get out into space. And you can see that his kick has definitely improved. I know, again, how much hard work he's put into his kicks, and he actually hit a few targets today, and then kicked some long into the forward 50. So I was pleasantly surprised at his development and how quickly he's been improving in this preseason. And again, I'm always open to changing my mind on things depending on the evidence that presents itself. I'm definitely not trying to be stuck in my ways. And the same way that I'm happy to be convinced otherwise about Parrish moving away from him, I'm sort of being convinced by this game today that Elijah has definitely improved with his ball skills, and could warrant selection moving forward. Could. Todd Goldstein played in the ruck for the first half before being managed in the second half. Not Supercoach relevant. Shout out to him. You'd never pick him in Supercoach. Just it is what it is. There's too much value otherwise. And you wouldn't be picking Carl Langford either. he was
So,
really our only likely goal kicker today.
yeah, I mean, he kicked 2. So he kicks 2 and 3s and 4s against other teams. It feels like sometimes when you have games like this, there's 1 or 2 players like a Parish, as we've said, and maybe a Redmond in the first 5 minutes, and then a Langford who put in the work, and then everyone else kind of just like makes up numbers. And yeah, good to see that from Langford. At least he's keeping the form, and hopefully, I'm not talking Coleman, but hopefully, like he keeps it going. It's not really super coach relevant for us, being this price and the position that he plays on field.
No, he's in all Australian contention though. I'd say all
Yeah.
Australian. Get him a jacket, a nice blazer for Langers. Caldwell, not as many CBAs as Setterfield, as Parish. He definitely, I think, started to get more CBAs later in the piece, similar to a Perkins. Didn't have an amazing game today, was just
Mm.
serviceable for 437K. I would not be going near him in Supercoach either. It is what it is, guys. I know I love my Bombers, I know I love my boys, but I'm going to be honest with you when it comes to these selections, and Essendon, for the most part, is not a Supercoach relevant team. Just these are sort of the observations that we had today. Because I know some people have asked me about Colders and what sort of role he's going to play. It's going to be half forward. And unfortunately, that's not his strengths. He needs to be on the ball. But with all of the midfielders that we have, he won't be able to play that role as much as he needs to. So stay
Yeah.
away from Colders.
And guys like Gresham running through the position as well probably don't help. Potentially stealing some of his CBAs. It did seem like it was majority forward, but then did have some CBA action as well, Joe.
Yes, in the last quarter in particular, definitely started to get more involved in the centre back. Not immense, just a few. In the last quarter, he's definitely playing the high half forward role, working his way into the middle of the ground around stoppage and then busting his ass back. He was one of our best today. Really gave us some X factor. He's definitely best 22, no doubt about it. And he can find the pill, but for 373K, it's very hard to justify it. Selecting him. So I wouldn't be picking him for Supercoach either. Just it is what it is. Some people who are Supercoach relevant as rookies, Lewis Hayes looked good upon coming in the second half. Was quite decent. He came in to replace Zach Reed, who was managed at halftime. Definitely was a big fan of both of these two young men in the role that they played. Didn't have a lot of the pill, though, is the thing. Very similar to a Gipkus type who aren't going to have the ball a lot. They're going to be slow burns. I think Reed's definitely ahead of Hayes in terms of the picking order in the team selection. So
What
you
what
can.
happened to Caddy? Did he just
Caddy
not
didn't
play
play today.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So, but I anticipate Caddy, as soon as we give him the green light to play, I think he will be ahead of Harrison Jones, who unfortunately, once again, didn't really make the most of this opportunity to play as that half forward. I think he was pushed out really pretty easily. I know St Kilda have a very good back line, but it's the writings on the wall here for Harrison Jones, and I think he can well and truly be passed up by Caddy, who just is so dynamic, has X factor, gets involved in the play. He's a real handful. I can't say the same about Harrison Jones. He just hasn't been a handful. He's been very easy to play against, to be honest. So as soon as I can see Nate Caddy getting games ahead of him this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe we'll see in the next game. Hey, Nate Caddy, chuck him in your team, Brad Scott, and then watch him monster the opposition's defenders.
And that, guys, was our discussion about the Essendon players. We then move on to the much better looking St Kilda players. Stay tuned. And now we move to some happier tones, moving across to the winners, the St Kilda Saints, and a lot of great ball movement coming off halfback. We just simply could not lock our ball in. We definitely had our share of clearances from the middle. We'd get it forward, but it would bounce back super quick. And this guy had a lot to say about that. He had a very good game, Nasiah Wang. I mean, Miller.
Yeah, it's someone that we penciled last year in Supercoach that we both started as a midfielder. So not even as a defender, but as a midfielder last year. And obviously we got punished and we had to trade him out. But we knew the role was always there. And with no Sinclair in the team, this guy just comes in and dominates. If Sinclair comes out and really does change his role and plays more of a midfield style and leaves Nazaya Wengani Mura to take that back line, we could be seeing a premium like level scorer here, Joe. This guy just super clean ball skills. Isn't the quickest player, but moves well enough that he can get out of the way of a lot of people who are trying to get past him. And yeah, just does very, very well. I would be very happy if I was a St Kilda fan and he was in my team.
Oh yeah, 100%. He's a smooth mover. He's not fast, but he's smooth. And he had a partner in crime today, someone who we probably weren't expecting, and he's here in the midfield, at a really interesting price point. Riley Bonner moving across from Port. Saints just pick him up, and this guy just had the ball on a string. He killed us single-handedly.
Yeah, it's weird because he was best 22 almost at Port Adelaide. And they just came out and delisted him because his contract was up. I'm like, cool, we'll relist you as a player. You'll keep playing. St Kilda was like, no, come in. You're playing for us. That's it. We'll play your best 22 every week. And we saw why. Like, experienced player in maybe a side that still has a few young guys and they need some settling down and things like that. Riley Bonner was really solid. The only problem in Supercoach is that we're really leaning towards just going guns and rookies in this midfield. If it was last year and it was kind of mid-price madness, as we both know, Joe, Riley Bonner, get in my team. But at the moment, he's going to have a really good game next week for him to be even selectable, I think.
Yeah,
good signs. Good signs for St Kilda.
Yeah, definitely good signs for St Kilda. It's just, a mid-pricer in the midfield at this point of the season. Seems a little bit sketchy, considering the value that we've got. But this guy could present a lot of value, especially as you mentioned before, when we're talking about Nazaya. If Sinclair's playing on the ball in the midfield, then it really could just be opening up a Bonner and Nazaya off half-back, DPP, could well and truly outperform his price. Now, I know the Bombers historically, we've always been torched by halfbackers, so I definitely want to have another look at how this game, how it works out next week against North Melbourne, which will be really interesting to see. But yeah, keep an eye on this guy because the value there could be really good. Speaking of value, this guy presents a lot of value. Are you gonna go there again? You've been torched before.
He's such a tease, Joe. So Jack Steele, 88% CBAs, had more than the Ruckman, who Rowan Marshall had 84. And then Philippou, who we'll talk about in the forward line, with 84 as well. So highest on field. It's so tempting. It's so tempting. If you
9 clearances.
Cheap,
9 clearances as well.
And you're not happy about a Matt Crouch, you can pay some extra money and get a Jack Steele in your team, and it could work out. I'm just not convinced. I need to see him come in and dominate against North Melbourne. I wish St Kilda had a round 0, which probably would have made Jack Steele ineligible in my team because I hate, early buy round players. But
yeah,
I need at least one more game. I can't throw him in going blindly into round 1 and just being like, cool, Jack Steele, it's going to work out and it's going to be a top 10 again. But signs are good at the moment.
Yeah, signs of them. And great tackling pressure as well. Man, I don't know. I was really pleased to see. I was pleased to see Jack Steele play that way.
It's hard to gauge, especially from this game, just for sorry for cutting in, but because Essendon was so poor, like when you've got an AFL quality team versus the VFL team, all the stats are going to be inflated, right? So it's really hard to, like, everyone beats up on West Coast or North Melbourne a couple of years ago. So they look fantastic. Yeah, 50 clearances. And it's like, well, next week we go back to normal stats. So we need next week to kind of gauge some of these players.
Fair enough. Very, very astute call. This guy came across from Freo. He was a prized acquisition. Freo tried to hold on to him. We can see why.
Yeah, they did.
Great running, great line breaking ability. He partnered up incredibly well with Hill over there. There was a period of time where they were both running side by side. Like, they could have raffled it between each other. He was a sensational player for him, very clean. and silky and classy and some X Factor tricks like no look handballs and things like that. So he was great. He was great for them. Congratulations. Not Supercoach relevant, but we have to shout out his incredible performance today.
Yeah, and he offers something different to the St Kilda team that might help them push up the ladder and be more of a stayer in the final series as well, something that they haven't really had. And obviously losing Gresham, there's a spot for him in the team. Yeah, if I was a St Kilda fan, I'd be very happy.
Yep. You mentioned this guy before having less center bounces than Steele, but he did really well. I think he had a nice, a nice contest with Goldie in the first half. Don't think either player got on top of the other. I think they sort of broke even. But then when Goldie was subbed off at halftime and we put in Nick Bryan, then Rowan Marshall just absolutely gave him a bath. So Rowan Marshall definitely going to be good for Supercoach for his team. But whether or not you want to start him at 639K, I just don't think the value is there. I'd still go Gaundy, I think, personally speaking. But keep a lookout for Rowan Marshall next week against Cherry. He should do better than Nick Bryan what he did today.
If he doesn't, then Cherry comes in and dominates. It's like, pick Cherry next week. Sure. Rowan Marshall's one of those weird ones because we know he doesn't have an early buy in Supercoach, and he's so tempting to go him over a Gawn. But we just know Gawn's ceiling compared to Marshall. So can he convince us? Maybe. Big watch and see. He likes to beat up on worse ruckman, so it's not a great trait because when he versus actual teams, he gets pushed around a little bit.
Machito Owens. What do you think of his game?
Joe, I love Machito Owens. I wish can North Melbourne go and get Machito Owens. Didn't line up on many CBAs or anything at all today, so it is a little bit of a worry because it was lined up that we were going to get him as a CBA style player, but it is what it is, right? Sometimes the players move around, especially in practice games, especially when Jack Steele's getting 80%. Maybe next week we'll see something a little bit different.
There was no Crouch either, so I think who would have gotten CBAs as well. So I think that puts the rest. I don't think Machito Owens is going to be playing on the ball, which is unfortunate, but you never know. Never say never. He could, but I'm not going to go there. Mateus Filippo also had a decent game. I think this guy featured in some CBAs himself today. I would have definitely liked this guy at Essendon instead of Asadas. I think he could have had him. I wanted him. I wanted the Poe. I've openly said it. I think he would have complemented our midfield mix a lot better. An offensive midfielder with some X factor would have been great, and he's providing that to St Kilda. So, congratulations to them. I wouldn't be picking him for Supercoach though at that price.
No, definitely not. If all the other mid prices fall apart and Philippou just is cool, I'm going to be 100% mid time, then maybe. But otherwise, he's not really Supercoach relevant for us. But he's very relevant for St Kilda.
Correct. That's why we spoke about him today. So shout out to Mateus. This guy, though, is Supercoach relevant.
Yep. Darcy Wilson, Joe. I love me a bit of Darcy Wilson. We've been hyping him up all preseason. North Melbourne wanted him at pick 15 or whatever they had with their first pick. St Kilda had the pick before. They were like, nope, we're getting Darcy Wilson, stuff you. And we can see why. Just runs for days, up and down the wing, up and down. Just doesn't stop this kid. He is slowly locking himself into a best 22, if not there already. And he's locking himself into my forward line. I've almost got this guy on field. That's how good he is to play. And DPP, midfielder forward, how can you not?
That's exactly right. If you really want to go cheeky, you could have him at F6, to be honest. And he might not be subbed off because he can run all day, and because he's endurance based, he wouldn't be used as a sub, because you wouldn't be properly using his aerobic capacity. So I think Darcy Wilson could well and truly be an F6 possible player, and he would have got more of the ball. Yeah, and he would have got more of the ball if not for the terrible conditions and if we were a bit more competitive. and getting the ball forward a bit more, he might have got the ball even more. So Darcy Wilson, well done, son. And a quick shout out to Hugo Garcia, who did some nice things in the forward line. Obviously not going to be overly Supercoach relevant because I think he's overly reliant on kicking goals in order to get his scores, but he did look good, did look very lively. The players got around him when he kicked the goal in the game. So congratulations to you, son. But probably not going to be Supercoach relevant.
40% CBAs, Joe.
40%.
40% CBAs.
For Hugo Garcia.
Yep. From today's game. You never saw him, but he was there. And, mate, I look at those stats and I'm like, oh, 40% CBA, not too bad, not too bad.
Was this in the VFL side or something? Was this in the VFL segment or something? Because I did not see this guy at all.
Unless AFLratings.com.au is teasing me there with the cheeky 40%. This is what I've got.
Guys, maybe I couldn't see it through all the tears that were in my eyes. Let me know just
potentially
how prolific this guy was, because to me, I did not find him that prolific at all with 40% CBAs. Let me know, guys, if I'm losing my mind. If so, this guy should be a lock in everyone's benches, mate. But there was no Crouch.
Yep.
You've actually thrown me for a loop here. 40%. I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
Watch him in the next game to see kind of what happens.
Exactly. And on that note, guys, that was our discussion of the game today between the St Kilda Saints and the Essendon Bombers, where the Saints got the job done by 66 points, if you don't mind, on their home deck in blustery conditions. Let us know if you liked what we had to say below.
Yeah, guys, we've kind of given you a few players that maybe you should put in your teams today, but definitely to track for next week. So stay tuned for those. We've got our Supercoach League that hopefully you guys have all joined by now. I want like 10,000 people joined in. You can win 3 amazing prizes, as well as our tipping competition. The links will be down in the description below.
Exactly. And if you like what we had to say today, enjoying some of the banter and the way we go about things, please drop us a like on this video. It would greatly help it go out in the algorithm, all that jazz. And hit that subscription button as well. It's very easy to do. You just get the mouse or your finger or your brain. If you have Neuralink installed, then you can get that subscription button hit so that you don't miss out on any of our videos. Hit that notification bell as well.
100%, Joe. We're smashing out content. A lot of fun. Supercoach is coming in, a month from now? I think it's almost round 1 is a month. Stay tuned for all the videos we've got coming out here on the Centre Bets.
Because we do the hard work so that you don't have to. Bye for now.